Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoteric series on the MiSTer FPGA DE10 Nano project, more specifically in this instance, the work in progress Atari Jaguar core, because we've had a bunch of updates this week, so I'm going to do a video today on Friday to culminate all of the different changes and improvements, because recently we got a single RAM core as well as a turbo CPU option, so now anybody can pretty much test the Atari Jaguar core out there, even if they don't have a dual RAM setup. Before I get too far involved though, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. If you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, I got a Patreon link down below as well. And just a heads up, I am still in the middle of having the flu, so if I sound a little bit weird today, that is why, but I'm so incredibly bored just sitting on the couch the entire week. I wanted to come in and make one more video for you guys before the weekend. And honestly, the new Atari Jaguar core feels like 95% of a real Atari Jaguar. People are having so much more luck getting Alien vs Predator to boot on these new builds. Previously, it seemed to be kind of a crapshoot, a coin flip if you will, as to whether or not you could get Alien vs Predator to actually run on the core. And last time we talked about this game, in the actual Predator sequence, all of the colors were completely incorrect and all of the transparencies were showing glitches through them. Now that's completely not the case. If there's any graphical glitches or any issues in Alien vs Predator, I cannot spot a single one of them. I have talked to people that have played at least the Alien campaign through from start to finish, being able to save and come back to the game whenever they wanted, and everything was totally fine. Now I can't guarantee that's going to be your experience if you try to play the game. It is still work in progress, but like I said, two people I've talked to both interestingly ran the Alien campaign and were able to see the credits roll on Alien vs Predator, and that's really the progress we're looking for in cores like this, not just being able to experience the games, but being able to play them like you were on real hardware. And if you've never played Alien vs Predator before, trust me, it is a game worth playing on the Atari Jaguar, and I would say it's one of the few reasons to actually make owning an Atari Jaguar worth it. But the best part is the core is bringing Jaguar to way more people in 2025 than ever before, and that is because Atari Jaguar hardware is exceedingly expensive online. And of course, we have Rich Whitehouse's Big PMU, which has brought Jaguar to a ton of people as well. But honestly, I haven't heard Atari Jaguar mentioned as much as I have since the MiSTer FPGA core restarted active development, because a year ago we had a core that maybe played 5 games if you were lucky. Now I would say almost the entirety of the retail library is going to boot in the core, and you're going to be able to play the games, which is a ton of fun. So definitely check out Alien vs Predator if you haven't yet. Now moving over to a first-person shooter that pretty much everyone has played somewhere. This is Wolfenstein 3D or Wolfenstein 3D, depending on how you want me to pronounce it. I say it both ways, and pretty much every time someone says I should say it the other way. But this is honestly one of the best home console ports of the game ever made, and it is another reason to play Atari Jaguar. It is such a classic game, a quintessential example of what the first-person shooter genre would become when it moved on to Doom and things like that, and it works here on the core. You can sit down and play it. I've definitely checked it out, maybe gotten to the 4th or 5th level, and absolutely everything has been rock solid stable with no issues whatsoever. So this is definitely one I can recommend you can start playing today. And big thanks to Andy D for helping with the captures this week. It's all I could do to bring myself into the office and edit and do the voiceovers. But that dude right there was sneaky and took us out, and it's always fun to see how the enemy AI works in these very simple early FPS games. But this is a title that definitely shows it can run well on Jaguar. You get a great frame rate, and you get everything else you would expect from Wolfenstein 3D. And because again, this is a work in progress core that's seeing active development, anytime I can point to a game and say you can play it like you're playing real hardware, that is a good example of just how far the core has come. There's nothing about Wolfenstein 3D in the controls, in the gameplay, in the visuals that makes me think I'm doing anything other than sitting down in front of my television, putting a cart into a real Atari Jaguar, and just playing the game. And of course, that is the end goal of every single MiSTer FPGA core, to obscure the line between FPGA recreation of hardware and the actual hardware in and of itself. So I would say Wolfenstein 3D is probably the #1 example of a game that just basically seems to be doing exactly what it should do on MiSTer as it would on real hardware. And again, it is one of those quintessentially classic first-person shooter games from back in the day, and anyway you play Wolfenstein 3D, you're definitely going to have fun. Now here comes your soundtrack sample. I'm going to use Tempest because people love to hear the music. 45 seconds, I'll be right back to talk more about the Jaguar core. I played Tempest 2000 enough to know when it sounds correct, and that definitely sounds correct to me. And as far as the visuals are concerned, the trippy psychedelic colors, the particle effects, all of the music, all of the control, it just plays, sounds, and looks like Tempest 2000. I'm also using this video kind of to showcase the fact that every console deserves love. Yes, the Atari Jaguar was a failure. Yes, it has a paper-thin library, but the first 3 games I'm showing you are absolutely must-plays on the console. And of course, Wolfenstein 3D exists on other platforms as well. It's not an exclusive, but between Alien vs. Predator and Tempest 2000, there's 2 main reasons to play the Atari Jaguar core. Leave me a comment down below and you tell me if you've been testing the core yet at all, or you've just been checking up on the updates via the videos, because I would probably say maybe 7 out of 10 of you just don't play test cores until they're actually released and update all, and I'd say maybe 3 out of 10 of you actually like to jump in and do some of the testing. So I'm curious who has checked this one out so far and who's kind of waiting in the wings for it to get a little bit more buttoned up. If I had to guess, and it would just be a guess, I feel like we're probably 3 to 4 months out from a completed Atari Jaguar core, and the one benefit of a very small library is bug testing is much easier compared to something like the active development of Sega Saturn, where you have thousands of games. Something like the Jaguar, you have under 100 titles to test to make sure they're working correctly, which definitely does aid in actually getting the game and the core developed a little bit quicker. I'm moving over to what I would consider Atari Jaguar's #1 hidden gem. This is 05. It is absolutely a fun game to play. It's got a spectacular soundtrack, and it uses the Jaguar's admittedly not great 3D capabilities to its advantage. It does take a few minutes to understand how to aim in the game and how to lead your shots into the ships. Once you figure that out, this one just absolutely is one of my favorite Jaguar hidden gems. It runs at an absolutely great frame rate, and it just has a vibe and feel to it that is something intriguing. And you'll see here you basically have free range of movement in 360 degrees, and again, it can take your brain a minute or so to figure out exactly how to aim and lead your shots. So when you understand how to do that, this game definitely is a ton of fun. And as you get further into the game, you also have Star Wars style trench runs through different spaceships where you can basically just navigate around. Take it from me, give 05 a chance. It's one of those titles I never hear anyone mention it whatsoever, and that is a bummer. Unfortunately, this one likes to seem to freeze between level 1 and level 2, so your results may vary, but it definitely is something worth checking out on the Jaguar core, and it is one of those titles that shows that the Jaguar could do some solid 3D and even some texturing as well, because some of the polygons here are going to have textures, and some of the models get quite big on screen. But I told you it has a really fun soundtrack. It's kind of got that space vibe going on for it. So go ahead and listen for 35 seconds to come back, as I got one more Jaguar game to show you on the core. Definitely does it for me on the soundtrack front, but you leave me a comment down below and tell me what you think. Now moving into the homebrew scene for a moment, this is Operation Follow Through Prologue. It is a work in progress game that was made for a Jaguar game jam by one of the members of the 3DO Discord. It's basically trying to make its own virtual cop on the Atari Jaguar. It is a first-person shooter. You'll obviously see here you have a reticle, because the Atari Jaguar never actually had a light gun peripheral made for it. But it is fun to take a look at homebrew projects as well, because sometimes they do things with the hardware that would have never been done on retail games. You see it on Nintendo 64 a lot, where the core will not run a certain homebrew title that as Nintendo 64 won't run either, but software emulation will, because it has some benefit or added feature in there. So it's great just to kind of see what's going on in the homebrew scene here, and I will say for a very early demo, it definitely has a lot of fun vibes going on. If anything, it kind of reminds me a little bit of Super Hot in its overall graphical stylings, and it is fun just to see people making 3D homebrew homebrew games for the Atari Jaguar, because pretty much every other time you see a homebrew game for a Jaguar or other consoles, I'd say 9 out of 10 times it is a 2D game, because it becomes much more difficult to develop in 3D, especially with a very immature tool set, because it's not like there's a ton of Jaguar SDKs out there in the world. But Operation Follow-Through is doing everything in full 3D. You do have some texture mapping as well. Obviously, it is still early in its development process, so there is a lot more to be done, and maybe it'll never actually be finished up, but it does show that people are out there trying to make new experiences for the Jaguar, and honestly, a virtual cop style game is a genre that the Jaguar could use. It is fun to see here, and I do like what it is doing. And again, testing homebrew is as important as testing retail games, especially on the Jaguar library, where there really isn't a ton of games to actually test, because it is under 100 games retail released. But that's the current situation with the current Atari Jaguar core, dual RAM and single RAM. All of these captures are done on dual RAM, but you should have about the same results on single. And again, sorry about my voice today, trying to get through this flu, but I definitely felt like coming in and talking about MiSTer FPGA and Jaguar, because I've been very bored not making videos. But enjoy your weekend, go test some Jaguar, and if you are playing the Jaguar core, tell me what game you're playing down below. But we're done, I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.